Today's October the 16th, Sunday.
The day after our reunion.
Day after the Ferris High School reunion.
1934. Is this all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Hamblin, would you state your full name, when you were born, where you were born?
James Maurice Hamblin. I was born July 15, 1917. It was a dark and stormy night. There was traffic downpour. This happened about 10 miles southwest of Paris, about a mile and a quarter southeast of Ambia Community Village.
Now, Ambia was, you called it a village. How many, did it have a store? Explain what Ambia was like at the time.
Well, I don't know about the day I was born, but a few weeks later I could make this declaration. There was a general store. There had been two general stores. There was a cotton gin, a railroad station with telegraph operator, ticket agent, spurs for loading out bales of cotton, a cane press, a blacksmith shop, the church, which had been a Presbyterian church, and by my arrival time it had become a Methodist church, and through much of that time it had served as a community school, but no more. This is in its history. In my early days, I counted up how many people lived in Ambia, and there were 28. And let's say this is 1925. And this would be in about 6 households, something like that. That's the whites. I can't account for the blacks.
Was there a large community of blacks around there?
No, not in the sense of a community. There was a house here and a house there. There was a number. There was almost a black house for every white house, more or less, but they were not brought together. They were scattered like most black houses. Now, living outside the village were a whole bunch of people. Like our house was a mile and a quarter out, and there are others in every direction. We had neighbors a quarter mile away, not included in the count of 20. I'm talking about whites and blacks also.
Did the blacks mostly work these other people's farms, or were they farming on their own? Or
there was no farming on their own. They were working for whites.
Now, you were born on your parents' farm?
Not quite. The property belonged to my great aunt, Mary Susan Hamblin Rogers, who was born in 1848 and died, I think, 1934, about 1934. And while we're at it, in those times still, neighbors practiced undertaking functions, and Dad went to help take care of her, even though she lived here in town. And I left Mother and my sister and me on the farm, and my mother tended to get a little uneasy, left alone, left at night with my sister and me. And maybe 9:30 in the evening, all of us just a little bit uneasy. There was an awful screeching sound permeating the whole area, and just scared us to death. And Mother got her feet back on the floor first and said that was a screech out. I lived there off and on most of 22 years, and it was the only time I ever had a screech out. It was the night I think Mary died. So, it's an excitement.
Screech owl, now, is that a real...
That's a bird.
Real owl, or was that a nickname that given?
No, it's a modified, as far as I know, it's a species of owls.
Did you ever lay eyes on one? Did you ever know that was a screech owl?
No. I think they're nocturnal, that's one reason. And that doesn't help any when you hear one, because it's dark, Exactly.
So you lived on this farm that belonged to your great aunt? Did
Yes.
your parents own any land?
In 1924, they had made their first land purchase of 32 acres close by from J.D. Boyd, who ran the store in Ambia. And he closed that about 1926 and moved to Paris. And I hate to see him go because although she was several years older than I, he had an absolutely beautiful daughter named Helen. And there were several boys, and the youngest was named Dickie. And he's perhaps the finest athlete I ever saw in the natural sense. You know, he lived in the neighborhood, so we lost when they closed the store and moved away.
Now, what was this person's name? You said Dickie? That was his last name?
No. J.D. Boyd was the father. Helen Boyd was the beautiful daughter. Dickie Boyd was the youngest and the athlete and a nice person. Now that was my parents' first, this is where the question started. That was my parents' first land acquisition. Then they bought the second farm, which was known as the Air Park Place, west-northwest of Ambia, maybe a quarter mile. Then they bought another place, about 250 acres, which was up, well, adjoined Aunt Mary's. That became the property they finally held on to. Hey, I could put in on that 32 acres that about 1971 I got a phone call in Huntsville, Alabama one night. And Mr. Scarborough, calling from Tyler, Texas, worked for H.L. Hunt Company. And we still had, we sold the land and kept mineral rights, and they were fixing to drill. And he wanted me to sign a lease for it. And I thought, this is great, H.L. Hunt wanting to send me money. And I think I got $85. They did drill not far from our property, down to 25,000 feet, expecting to find gas. And never reported finding any and kept the drilling equipment and drove away.
This was in the 70s, you said?
About. Let's pick a number, 1972. You go to Ambia now and find any of the old timers, they can take you to the hole coming out, the pipe coming out the ground, protruding from where H.L. Hunt's drilled.
Did they drill on other farms or other land?
Only that one. And in bygone years there had been some drilling due west of Howland back in the mid-20s. That's the only one I know of in that area. That was a big to-do on Sunday afternoon, nothing to do, let's go watch them drill for a while. And the whole neighborhood congregated there, so it was a highly social thing.
Before we get too far away, what was your parents' names?
My father was William Rice Hamblin. My mother was Rosa Scott. I've heard her name, Rosa Lee Scott, 3 words. But I've never seen the Lee in writing. I've just heard it spoken. Rosa Scott is in the record.
Now, was your parents originally here in Lamar County, or did they come from outside the county?
They were both born in the county. She in 1890 and he in 1891. She was born at Broadway Junction, due south of Paris. He was born 3/4 of a mile southwest of Ambia. The Hamblins, let me put this in right quick. The Hamblins arrived in the Ambia community in December 1850. And I'm talking early, well, his being born there 1890. As a grandson of the settlers.
Your father was a grandson of you, so your second great-grandfather is the one that originally came here?
Yes, that would be, let's start with the beginning. Jacob Leidy, and apparently with his family, arrived in Texas, apparently in what became Lamar County, January the 26th, 1836. This is in records. And Austin, Texas Land Office to be specific. He had a daughter, Elizabeth Malvina. Alfred Hamblin pulled into the county in 1843 and bought outright 250 acres from the Caleb Wood Survey, actually in Fannin County near Ladonia. In the springtime, if I haven't said that already. And in the fall, gave bond to James Crowder for another 250 acres near Noble and Harmon. And this can be found on the survey map. And apparently, they settled, well, he and Jacob Leidy's daughter were married in Fannin County, apparently in Bonham, September the 24th, 1845. And apparently resided in the plot in Lamar County. And there's a good reason for that. The Indians were still around, and if you were at the Ladonia site, you were out in front of Fort Leidy. And that's a little bit exposed, but the Crowder property near Noble and Harmon, you're behind Fort Leidy and a little more protected.
So you are related to the founder of Fort Leidy, right?
That's a little bit distant. There were 3 Leidy brothers. This will grow a little bit. Andrew was the elder. Jacob was the middle one, and Isaac was youngest. The fort was Isaac. Jacob was my ancestor. So I'm not descended from Fort Leidy. Fort Leidy founder was an uncle of my great uncle, to be specific.
So Andrew, Isaac, and Jacob were all brothers?
Yes.
And did they apparently all come here at the same time?
Apparently.
Do you know any old stories about Fort Leidy? First of all, where is Fort Leidy? Exactly, as best that you can say.
I'd say it's within a mile or so of the cemetery at Dow. Now,
in which direction?
I don't want to say. It's a signpost, is known to me. Not a signpost, a historical marker. And the only evidence I understand of the fort itself is a depression in the ground, which was the old well that was filled in, but you can still see that, and that was inside the fort. And the fort proper was a stockade, and it was large enough to accommodate all the families in the area, so that when the Indians went on periodic warpath or thievery or whatever, everybody would meet there. So be protected from the Indians.
So this was not necessarily a large fort where a lot of people lived?
They did not live there. They went there when the Indians started misbehaving. It's my understanding that's full of the moon, head for the fort sort of thing. In the dark of the moon, they didn't bother people.
Was the fort near the Sulphur River or on the river, or do you know?
I'm going to say it's within a mile of Sulphur River, and this is close. And there's a crossing of Sulphur River there, which was known back then and is still known as the Leidy Crossing for Isaac Leidy, and associated with the fort.
So the crossing, there must have been a road from the crossing to the fort then.
This is the old Texas National Highway crossing of which we speak. Of course, Texas National Highway came about 6 years after the fort was built.
After the fort was built?
Yeah.
And do you have any idea how long that fort lasted as far as the buildings?
Into this century. But it wasn't very usable. And this is secondhand information I picked up, that there was still enough protection there that if it needed it, they could have gone, but it was deteriorating rapidly, rotting, etc. Back to the Leidys. The still younger brother. Well, the Leidys had come from White County, Tennessee. and a younger brother named Henry Washington Leidy trained for law in Sparta, Tennessee, under the watchful eye of an established lawyer. Then the rest of the Leidys moved to northern Missouri, and he started practicing law there and was elected to the Missouri State Senate, and then became Missouri State Treasurer. And as the war between the sections got going, he, with 3 other men, took $5 million of Missouri Treasury, I believe it was to New Orleans, to turn over to the Confederacy to pay Confederacy bills, I guess England, France, what have you. And they actually delivered the money. Then Henry Washington, after the war, I guess he rose to colonel during the war. Some of this I can't back on paper. I can give you dabs on paper and put it together. He settled in Fannin County, practiced law, was elected a judge. He became known as Judge Leidy. So there were actually 4 Leidy brothers in this immediate vicinity. Back to my ancestor, Jacob Leidy, got here with a family in time to qualify for a league and a labor of land, 4,605.5 acres, most of which ran in north and south direction, narrow and long, and reached from about even with Atlas on east-west direction, south to about even with Broadway, including the village of Howland and so forth. Then he had another block, 400 acres, southwest of the village of Broadway, and he bought land, he sold land, trade. He was quite I think, a good man. He was pronounced as being very religious by tradition, legend. He was Justice of the Peace on 2 occasions, once in Red River County before Lamar County was formed, and once in Lamar County. I believe it was 1844. He married Dr. MacDonald and Mrs. Turner, and this is in Judge Neville's History of Lamar County, who became the parents of 3 sons, one of which was named William, who amassed a fortune as a parish banker, and at his death gave it the University of Texas to establish an observatory, now called McDonald Observatory, out in the Fort Davis Mountains. So that came from Lamar County. The money was, I said University of Texas.
Now, who was this? This was a McDonald.
Yeah, Jacob Leidy married the parents of the man who gave McDonald Observatory. Just a passing comment. I understand. I've seen it in writing. I didn't get a copy of the source. I have a weakness in that respect. He was one of the bondsmen for Judge Rutherford as the original judge in Lamar County. I should have saved a copy of that, but I didn't. He was Justice of the Peace twice, as I have mentioned. He was elected representative of Lamar County in the 5th Texas Legislature, convened, still a 2-year legislature, convened in 1853. And 1854 was a down year, no legislature. And in 1854 he tossed his hat in the ring for election to the U.S. Congress, and some 3 months later withdrew from that campaign and died about 9 months later. Apparently enduring illness got him.
Now this was Jacob Leidy.
And that's April 7th, 1855, if you will, that he died.
Is his burial site identified?
No.
Do you have any idea where he's buried?
I have made this a major effort to see if I could find it. If nothing else, a good exercise. And I've plotted all his lands and what happened to him. It's custom in that family, and not only in that family, when one died, they were buried in a pleasing site close to the home. And this happened in Missouri, where the rest of the Leidies went. And it happened in the Hamblin family, descended from Leidie's daughter. It buried them close to the home in a pleasing spot. It's also happened in Essex County, Virginia. I have ancestors there, buried in the garden. And I guess they're still alive buried there. I don't know where the garden is. This is in a deed. I can show you the deed. But when property was to be sold out of the family, the remains were exhumed to be reburied in another like site, or better, in an established cemetery. And Jacob's first wife would know, well, it's handwriting on the wall, that she died after arriving in Texas before application was made for his land grant based on the certificate of eligibility which had been furnished him for the League and the Labor of Land. And his application was rejected as fraudulent for having asked for too much land, so that identifies approximate time or period for death of his wife, first wife. And then he remarried right quick, went to court in Lamar County, got a court declaration of his eligibility, refiled and got the land. In the meantime, without title to it, he had sold 2,510 acres for $4,510 to Jesse Shelton, who was the proud owner of Fort Shelton. You all know that, I'm sure. And that included his home place where his first wife had been buried. Under family tradition, he was obligated to exhume her remains and rebury her. If you look in Dr. McChristian's records of early days in Lamar County, something like that, at Junior College, there's a Leidie buried in McDonald Cemetery. We don't know where, but he records a Leidie being buried there. Could not be anyone other than Jacob's first wife.
What was her name?
Eliza Jane Flowers, daughter of Reverend William Flowers of Smith County, Tennessee. He died in the fall of 1844 and named her and Jacob and their 3 children living at her death and also at his death. They were named in his will. So this, and I have a copy of that, this is hard, substantial legal information. Jacob remarried, I said, quickly and reestablished his eligibility with a court order.
Who was his second wife?
Harriet Jane Crowder, sister of James Crowder, from whom Alfred Hamblin had bought the 250 acres of land. Now the Crowder homestead in Tennessee was about a half mile from the Leidie homestead. And Alfred Hamblin had been about a half mile of that, according to the sequence of names appearing in tax rolls, government house tax. And he paid taxes there, poll tax. So everybody knew everybody coming here. The first land that Alfred Hamblin bought in Fannin County, Caleb Wood survey, from John Pennington. John Pennington had come here from that same neighborhood in White County. And he moved on, I guess.
So what other families can you identify that came from the White County area?
I've never tried. I don't know.
You say there were Penningtons,
Leidies, Crowders, Hamblins.
and that's all that you know of at the moment?
No, I could, at the moment, take a low-risk guess. Well, I don't know if the name will come back to me now. They appear in the area.
Well, that's okay.
I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize. It's all right. It's So that was the kind of the way to go back then in the 1840s and so on, is to travel with several families from one place to another, and most of the time those families would then settle in the final area wherever they went to.
Yes, that's very much a pattern, over and over. There's the possibility of two things: that they go together, or one goes ahead and the other traipses along behind. And of course, Alfred traipsed behind Crowders and Leidy's coming here. And I don't know. Other Hamblins in White County went with other Leidy's, etc., to northern Missouri. So Alfred had brothers and sisters and so forth in northern Missouri, while his wife, Elizabeth Malvina Leidy, had cousins and so forth in northern Missouri, uncles and aunts.
Are there any male descendants still alive from the Leidy's that associated with the fort?
No doubt, but I don't think I
the
can.
Leidy's surname.
As descended from Isaac Leidy, the owner, so to speak, of the fort, the builder. I have to believe they live, but I can't identify them.
But none stayed around in this area.
I can't say they
not.
didn't. I can't say. I think there are J.T. Leidy's living in Honey Grove right now. And I don't know their origin. Could easily be Isaac Leidy. I'm sure of that. They're not descended. Well, I'm going to make that a declaration. They have to be descended from Isaac and not from Andrew or the other male, a young Andrew, who had no offspring. So they had to be Isaac's descendant. Now, if you want to go back about the last year, the East Texas State University president's house had long in years and had deteriorated, and man and woman who were graduates of ETSU gave $250,000 to the university for refurbishment of the president's house. The woman was the daughter of the J.T. Leidy's who live in Honey Grove. And her husband, whose name gets away from me, I can send you a newspaper clipping on this, was vice president of a firm originated by a fellow named Perot, H. Ross Perot. So he's in the money, you know that, and they don't donate part. They dedicated the restoration to the J.T. Leidy's of Honey Grove, her parents. This is in the newspaper article. That's a Greenville paper.
Were there any other stories of significance associated with Fort Leidy?
Yes, but they involve fine detail. Like one of the finest safeguards against Indians were dogs.
Really?
And the Indians were very afraid of dogs. This is part of the written history. Now, the history was written later.
Now, when we talk about Indians, is there one particular tribe that was associated with this area that you know of, or like Cherokees, or?
I don't know. I don't know that they were ever identified. I don't recall ever seeing identity of such, whether they were Comanches or Apaches or what. They were not civilized tribe Indians, I'm sure of that.
So where Fort Leidy came before Fort Shelton?
I can't say that, and I don't know the answer.
But you had mentioned just a little bit ago that some land was sold to Mr.
Jacob
Shelton.
Leidy sold 2,510 acres. This is about 1838 to Jesse Shelton for $4,510, and this is recorded in Clarksville before Lamar County was created, and was recorded again when Lamar County was created. I can send you a copy of the deed transferring property, and it was over half of the southern section and Jacob Leidy's big block that encompassed today's Howland. And it says, including Leidy's house, where his first wife would have been buried. I think in that part right there.
Were any of your family members ever associated with any of Fort Shelton?
No. I can say there was no doubt strong acquaintances, but insofar as association, no.
Do you have any idea the distance between Fort Shelton and Fort Leidy? Say as the crow may fly or something?
This is an interesting question because Friday morning we did Evergreen Cemetery with my cousin Myra McCoy, who just lost her husband Bob. We did Evergreen Cemetery, McDonald Cemetery, and then went looking for Bledsoe Cemetery, which is right close by Fort Leidy. And I guess there's 5 miles between the two forts. I know where Fort Shelton was. It's on the cover of the Quarterly. It's southeast of Roxton on the county border. Well, close to Sulphur River. And Fort Leidy was almost on Sulphur River. How far is Roxton from county line? It's not very far. As the crow flies.
Were there any other members of your family prior to your birth that of significant happenings? I mean, you're related to the Leidys of the fort. Were there ever any major events prior to your birth that are worth noting in your family? In respect
I
to
can give
County.
you one great big deal. Well, maybe it shouldn't be scorned at all. Alfred Hamblin and his Leidy wife residing west of Roxton near Noble or Harmon in that vicinity. About 320 acres of land from Helms, south of Ambia, substantially adjoining the Mallory property, and moved there. Alfred Hamblin died in 1863. His estate was upwards of 1,000 acres of land, as I remember, but more particularly, it included 850 horses. And I have always thought, boy, that's a collection of horses. What was he doing? And people say, well, he's probably dealing in a market of horses.
Yeah.
But 850 horses drink a lot of water and eat a lot of feed.
He died in the 1860s?
1863. Thank you.
I don't suppose you would have any connection to him providing horses to the Confederate States of America, could you?
I don't know of any connection. I've not seen any paperwork. Pardon me.
Quite all right. Well, that would seem, during this period, I mean, why somebody would have that many horses, it would be, I'm sure, a safe assumption. And
Well, that's going on. Alfred being my great-grandfather, paternally, my great-grandfather maternally was a member of Company G, 29th Texas Cavalry Regiment. So there were horses in use. I won't say any more about that at this moment.
why not? Feel free to do so.
Well, we're talking about William J. Cooper, all right? His mother, all right, I'm going to take off, was Elizabeth Bacon Journey. She was a granddaughter of Elizabeth Bacon. Check with Patsy, and she will show you the genealogy of the Bacons leading back to Charlemagne. Go.
And your direct that's a direct descendant of yours, right? An ancestor of yours.
Yes, and if you want to, you can take Charlemagne on back to Arnulf, Bishop of Metz, canonized a saint who lived 580-640 A.D. And a lady school teacher in Fort Worth, Mary, sent me handwritten notes on Arnulf going back to the time of Christ's birth, showing that I was a descendant of Augustus Caesar.
Augustus Caesar?
Yes. Stay with me, please. And I thought, I can get to this right quick. Look up Augustus Caesar in the old encyclopedia I have. And he's written up. And he died. He was married several times. And he died without heir. And the Roman Empire had to pass to a stepchild. That school teacher in Fort Worth didn't have all of her ducks lined up. I think this is great fun to do things like that. Now, we're talking about William J. Cooper. He was a private, G29 Texas Cavalry. His wife was Helen Mar Ridley. They had 5 children. He was a little bit older than the regular soldiers, so they made, I think the proper word is a draftman or dray or something like that, hauling freight about the Confederacy by wagon pulled by mules or horses. And he would ride home from many places, mainly in the land of the 5 civilized tribes. And I have copies of those letters. And his wife, Helen Mar Ridley, would write him. And those letters got saved too. So I have a beautiful collection of letters that I'd like to put in the library, but I can't very well do it because of such great privacy that is involved here. Anyhow, he contracted typhus and passed away in the hospital at Fort Wachita, Indian Territory, Chickasaw Nation of the Indian Territory. And in due time, his remains were removed from there to Fort Gibson National Cemetery outside Tulsa. So he lies buried there. And he could have used a horse or two from Alfred Hamblin, whose son, William Henry Hamblin, wound up marrying William Cooper's daughter, Eva. Those are my grandparents on that side.
Was this Cooper from Lamar County?
He lived in Lamar County. They had come from Maury County, that's M-A-U-R-Y, but it's pronounced Maury County, Tennessee. In 1859, between January the 10th and something like November the 1st, they had moved here. And in the group was William Cooper and his wife Helen Mar Ridley, her sister Lydia Everett Ridley, who married William H. Rowland. Okay? And her brother D. Hardiman Ridley. You've heard of him, I know. And they settled at Sylvan. And in time, well, first William Cooper died. And in due time, the Ridley Rowland group moved into Paris and settled on East Price Street. And I was driving around with Myra McCoy today, looking over these old properties. And about that time, Helen Mar Ridley Cooper moved with her 5 children to the immediate vicinity of Amby. I say immediate vicinity, maybe half mile U.S., where she lived about a quarter mile from the Hamblin residence, which led to development of romance and marriage.
Let me get perspective again now. in your grandparents, you've got the surnames of your grandparents now. What were they? Cooper, Hamlin,
That's,
ID?
no, grandparents.
Yeah.
On my father's side was William Henry Hamblin and
Okay.
Eva Cooper.
Okay.
On my mother's side, grandparents, is Lorena Lucinda Parker and James Robert Scott.
Were any of your grandparents on your mother's side here in Lamar County?
They were born and grew up here and
So
died.
The Parkers and the Scotts?
Yeah.
And were they from the same area?
The Parkers had come here from northern Arkansas, Madison County, up near Fayetteville. I don't know where it is with respect to Fayetteville, but that general area. And the census report showed them coming out of Tennessee to that area with numerous births in this county here. The Scotts came out of Alabama. If you like Madison County, which is the county I live in now, that's another story.
Tell it.
Well, William Francis Scott was born in 1746 in North Carolina and moved with his family to Randolph County, Georgia, about 1810. And John Jones was established in the county which became Montgomery County in Georgia in 1793, and he moved to this Randolph County in, I think it was 1806. And William Scott and John Jones' daughter Nancy got together on June 20th, 1812, and were married there. And by that time, the county's name had been changed from Randolph to Jasper County, and county seat is Monticello. The county seat of Montgomery County, from which Jones came, was named Mount Vernon. And, William Francis Scott and his wife Nancy Jones were in Madison County, Alabama, 5 years before statehood, even while it was territory of Mississippi. And in August 1814, he was tapped for military service in the War of 1812 in Peter Perkins Battalion, 7th Regiment, territory of Mississippi, militia, for active duty. He did serve in that outfit, and he finished his required service and went back home. But they lived in Lamar County from, I can declare, August of 1814 to October 1851, and had all their children. They actually had 11 children, 7 of which reached maturity.
You said they lived in Lamar County?
I didn't mean Lamar County, Madison County.
Okay.
Excuse me on that. Madison County, Alabama. Thank you.
Until
1851, October 1851, when they had sold their land, which is a normal thing after you gather crop, sell the land or consummate a sale, load up and move out to their new destination, which is Lamar County. And they settled in almost at Broadway Junction there.
And their names were, again?
William Francis Scott and his wife Nancy Jones, daughter of John Jones. She was born in 1793. He died in 1864. She died, I think, about 1781, something like that. They both lived ripe old ages.
Have you ever stopped to count or have any idea how many burials there are in Lamar County that you're directly related to?
Burials?
Yeah.
No. Not really.
Would you say it's in the more than 100, more than 200, more than 300?
I'd have to back. You say related to, that gets kind of broad.
Well-
Descended from a horse of another color.
Descended from them.
The ones I can find, my
Well,
parents,
including the ones you can safely assume are here, maybe unmarked.
from my two parents and four grandparents. One great grandparent, but whose graves I can show to you. And there be two more in Lamar County that I cannot show to you. This would be Alfred Hamblin and his wife Elizabeth Malvina Leidy. And the two Leidy graves, Jacob's first wife and himself. I cannot show you their graves. I think actually Jacob may have wound up ultimately being reburied in Fannin County. The indications are strong to that effect without any concrete evidence. Does that answer you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Let's jump up to time back to you're born, and where did you go to school first? Where did you first go to school?
Well, there was Ambia School about a quarter mile due north of our house. Easy walking. There were no paved roads or gravel roads or anything back then, so when it rained, the black dirt turned to black mud, and it was messy. And there's the traipsing to school looked difficult. My father would put a bridle on our mule, Kate, put my sister and me on the mule. We'd ride to school, get off, turn the mule around, give it a tap, and it'd go home. And then we'd worry about getting home when school was up. We were in school about 8 hours a day, not counting lunch hour and recesses, so it'd be about 4 o'clock when we'd look out. My sister was 2 grades ahead of me. She finished the 8th grades there. I had finished 6th grades. At that time, education being important in the family, we started moving to parish, to go to parish schools. Renting a house for the school year, returning to the farm as soon as the school year ended. So when kids in town talk about school vacation, it was right to the old team of mules, of cotton hoe and so forth for me. All right, if we weren't in school in parish, we were working in the fields.
So you went the first 6 years, you say, to this Ambia school?
Yes.
Could you describe school, like about how many students went there? Was it 1 room, 2 room? How?
It had 1 room unto itself. It had 2 rooms which are connected by sliding doors, which when opened up was huge. And that was a civic center when needed, with a stage at one end, and dressing rooms and stuff like that. I guess I'm going to guess 40 students with 3 teachers in peak condition, 1 for each room. 1 room, grades 1 through 4. The next room, grades 5 and 6. And the final room, grades 7 and 8. Part of the time there were just 2 teachers, a little more consolidation.
Well, do you remember any of the names of the teachers that were there?
Yeah. My first teacher was Miss Gladys Hines, and she was, first grade, elementary room. And I don't remember who had the rest of the grades. I think that was a 2-teacher regime. And then Miss Fay Chance succeeded her. I believe she was from Glory. And Miss Bonnie Bell Young, also from Glory, had the upper grades, 2-teacher system. And more or less after that, there were 3 teachers, and I remember 2. And it was Burton Mason and his wife Naomi. And he was principal and had the 2 upper grades, and she had 2 intermediate grades, so she was my teacher. And there was another teacher for the first 4 grades, so we had a 3-teacher system. And that was the final arrangement in our attendance at school there. My sister finished the 8th grade there under Burton Mason.
Can you recall or name off some classmates there in India?
Well, right off was Fred Roberts, who lived right across the road from the school, and they planted paper shell pecans along the lane leading to their house. That sticks in my mind. There were several children in that family. Elizabeth was one, Elizabeth Roberts. There was Bailey Brown, Alvis Wilson, Willie Paul Wilson, L.B. James, Woodrow James, Hildred James, Norman Black, Huey Black, Audie Black, the 2 Anderson boys. Roy was one of them. Come on, Hamblin. I've forgotten the name of the older one.
Don't worry, I can't even remember anybody in my first grade class.
They were, oh, you went first grade.
Or any of my classes.
Oh.
I'm just talking about, no, not necessarily first grade. But
Mary Wilson was a prominent name there, daughter of Guy Wilson. And she went on to become a teacher in the parish school system, and has passed on. There was Margie Wilson, daughter of Ralph and Irma Wilson, who's now Mrs. Nathan Real Estate. What's his name?
Nathan Bell?
Nathan Bell. But they moved to parish not long after that. I would tell you one. Well, Herschel Freeman was there part-time. I mentioned, I think I said Willie Paul Wilson, Elvis Wilson, Capitola Wilson, same family. The Taylors, Lucille Taylor. Have to poop out after Lucille.
Were any of these, were you related to any of these, like cousins?
I wish you had not asked that.
All of them were cousins, just about?
I had no idea, and I found just about every one of those surnames in my ancestry. Back Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee. And have to guess, maybe we were all cousins.
But at the time you didn't know it?
I think that if it were true, that people had forgotten about it long before I got there.
Now, you have to remember that...
I want to go back to one. Go ahead.
Go ahead, go back.
This is fantasy. In the Hamblin family is great admiration, respect, and trust for the Malorys. And I find fragments of evidence of the same thing in the Malorys for the Hamblins. And you wonder where it all comes from. And I don't know yet, but I can declare that in the 1690s in Charles City County, Virginia, Francis Mallory designated his dear friend John Hamblin executor of his will, or administrator, I forget what you call it. And they were close neighbors there. His name was Francis Mallory. When we were here on our heritage tour this past April, we just paused at the Mallory place south of Abbey, which had adjoined the Hamblin place from 1850 on. And there's old Mallory Cemetery there. And I want to show the sons, 3 sons, the Mallory well, from which I used to draw water to put in our cistern, about 1.5 miles, 2 miles away. And out in the yard was Francis Drake Mallory IV mowing the lawn. And I saw him, returning around, so I got out. And he beat me to it. He said, "I'm Francis Drake Mallory III." I said, "I'm James Maurice Hamblin, the only one." And he said, "Are you one of the Hamblins from here?" And here's this young lad who looks to be about 30. I'd never seen him or heard of him before. And he knew about me, us. Well, I've been hearing about Mallory's for years. And so there's been 4 generations of Francis Drake Mallorys in the county. Now we have this Francis Mallory in Virginia, the late 17th century. Let's back up. I have received, the immigrant Hamblin was named Stephen Hamblin, Captain Stephen Hamblin, mariner, who took his first land grant in Charles River County, Virginia, now York County, in 1638. And then researching him in England, I was informed that Stephen Hamblin sailed with Sir Francis Drake in 1594. In 1595, I believe, Sir Francis Drake died in 1595. Of dysentery on a cruise in the Caribbean. He was buried at sea. So we got Francis Drake all over the place. Now I wonder what the Mallory connection to Sir Francis Drake is. And I don't know. I hate to leave town without asking. But that's the way it is, right? Okay.
It has to be a female connection.
No,
married into the Drake family, maybe? It was a female Drake married into the Mallory family?
Well, it would have to be a descendant of Sir Francis Drake,
right,
to pick up his name. Most probably it could be done.
That's interesting.
I thought so. I got to get to the end of it. If my wife were feeling better, we would not be going home tomorrow. I'd be hunting Francis Drake Mallory III, this young man's father, who lives, I think, on Church Street, and see about Francis Drake II. He might not exist. He might have passed on. But I can't help but be enamored with all this information. Yeah. And take it on back. There's a famous book titled Lamar, or The Death of King Arthur, the author of which is Mallory. Does this all work out,
Well, you're going to have some things to work on and research now.
It goes on forever. There's no end. Here's another one that goes right with it. With this claim to descent from Charlemagne, remember that the protector of Charlemagne was named Roland. And I've got these relatives who are Roland descendants, and so, but the Song of Roland is the oldest recorded script in existence, I guess. A little bit about that sports fan. Some Mallory's and bells.
You may take that home and borrow it and read it and mail it back.
Is that,
Thank you.
got anything to do with Mallory's here in Lamar County?
It is Mallory's of Lamar County.
Really?
Yes.
Boy, this is going to be
Why did you
wonderful.
do that? Now he's going to want to look at that book right this minute, and I
Yeah.
can't finish this.
You'll come back tomorrow.
I'm sorry.
Don't get up no more. Let me take you back to Ambia and the school,
Well,
because people of my generation, and perhaps maybe the generation before me, didn't grow up in these 1, 2, and 3 room schools. Can you explain how in the world did a teacher teach grades 1 through 4, or or 4 through 6 or 6 through 8? How did they do it?
One at a time.
Well, what did the first graders do when she was teaching the second graders and things
Behave
like that?
themselves and, be looking at their studies and so forth, knowing they're going to be called on a little while. We had to recite. We had to take our books home at night and study.
They had better discipline then than later.
There was no more fearsome sound than the principal out in the corridor with the board applying the licks. I mean, these are loud cracks that you hear when some lad, I never heard of a girl getting the works, but I heard a few times in 6th grades, young boys who had misbehaved had got a spanking right inside the school building where everybody could hear it, and nobody misbehaved. In the families, people were inherently better disciplined than nowadays. Children are meant to be seen and not heard. And this was the way people lived. I would have known more genealogy except for growing up in that, because Aunt Mary was born in 1848 and died in 1934. I got in one question to her. I snuck it in one time. Mother took a deep breath and I snuck it in. But there was also her younger brother, Uncle Andrew, who was born about 1863 and went to med school and was a practicing physician and farmer and postmaster at Ambia, and moved to Paris and continued farming, gave up postmaster and continued medicine. And then he said to me he got to where he couldn't stand the big rip-off medicine, so he abandoned medical practice and went to work out at the crepe factory in Northwest Paris. It's probably still in operation.
And what year or time was this?
Well, he finished med school about 1890. He would have been 27, something like that, and practiced until, say, 1920, moved to Paris, continued practice. Well, maybe 1925 he quit medical practice and went to work in the box factory.
And what was his name?
Andrew Alfred Hamblin, younger brother of my grandfather, William Henry Hamblin.
You still didn't explain to me what a school day was like.
Oh,
I want to know what a school day
a
was
school
like.
day. All right.
How did all these people in one room,
You're
how
going
did it work?
You're going to have 2 sessions of about 4 hours each, and I can't guarantee that, with 1 hour lunch period and 2 20-minute breaks, one at 10 o'clock and one at 2 o'clock, okay? And the 4 grades would assemble in the elementary room, lined up in rows. The teacher would turn to grade 1 or grade 4, whatever fitted her routine, and she had an established routine, so we knew what was coming. Like 4th grade's going to get math in this next 30 minutes. And we might all go to the blackboard. She'd read off a problem. We would solve it before her eyes. Or she'd give us questions for tests, read them to us. We'd write out the answer, turn in a paper. Or we'd bring homework from home. This was every night, working out something in paper and turning the paper in the next day. But they did have to grade a lot of papers. But the school day outside of the lunch hour and the 2 recesses, there's something going on all the time. It might not involve your grade, but you couldn't help of knowing what's happening. And I think it may have benefited education because the 1st graders were being exposed to 4th grade and 3rd grade and 2nd grade and on up the chain. And in the 4th grade, Miss Fate, she just worked us down. She was a lovely disciplinary teacher. And she decided we should enter the spelling contest, countywide spelling contest in Paris. And she made us all exhibit our spelling ability. by practices during recess. We lost our recess for this. And gradually eliminated the lesser spellers and increased the intensity of practice on the better spellers. And it became very exhausting. Speed, accuracy, clarity of penmanship, and so on. We got hit on all of it. Then we then ended the county deal and didn't do anything to speak of. 5th and 6th grade were more relaxed, slightly different tenor. We weren't little kids anymore. There weren't so many of us in the room. We got more personal attention. 7th and 8th would be the same thing, although I did go through.
So, as a 4th grader, and you're sitting in this room with 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, and each one of those getting 30 minutes apiece, what in the world did a 4th grader do for an hour and a half while these other ones were being instructed?
Mind their own business, study, whatever was called for.
So you could study while instruction was going on to these other grades?
If you had your next day's assignment in mathematics, you could work on that while she went back to 1st grade for, something.
It's just hard to imagine for someone of my age how that happened and how that worked.
It was no problem.
It was not distracting?
I don't remember it being distracting at all.
Amazing.
Will you please recognize one thing? 4th grade was 1928, and that was 66 years ago, I think. Or was it 70s? I'd have any problem with it in hindsight.
So from the Ambia school, you began to go to the parish schools. Now, did you go directly to Paris High School, or what was the first school you attended here?
Okay, I had finished the 6th grade at Ambia. My sister had finished the 8th grade. So I moved to Paris for the winter, rent a house, move in, and she enters high school in the 9th grade. There being 11 grades at that time. I went to 4th Ward School for the 7th grade, which was the last of the elementary grades. There were about 25 in that classroom, more or less. I can't name them. I can name a few of them. The principal of 4th Ward took that class. He was a lifelong buddy of my father's. I didn't have any trouble. Let me say it further. He was scoutmaster. I was in his troop. Once a month, somebody had to go get the paychecks for the teachers. I was always sent to get the paychecks for the teachers.
Well, where did you go to get paychecks?
The superintendent's office, which was situated in Paris High School. I walked in, 4th Ward, please, and they'd hand me a package check.
So they sent a student to the superintendent's office to get the paychecks for all the teachers?
That's right.
Well, they wouldn't do that nowadays.
I have no idea. Oh, they'd have electronic deposit.
That's incredible.
I can't recall every bit. It happened so often, I can't imagine my not going. There was one period of 2 or 3 days in that school year when Paris had a terrible ice storm and cold spell. Terrible. It wasn't 15 years ago that J.R. Moore reminded me that they just had a hard freeze that was as bad as the 1929 freeze. And, it's a landmark. I don't think they sent me on my bicycle until the ice was off the street. I got up the next morning, bleary-eyed, new, and got on my bicycle and went out and hit the street, which was covered with ice, and didn't get very far, and couldn't drive the car. So I walked to school, walking on the lawn.
You said that the 7th grade was the first grade you attended in the 4th Ward School. How many grades did the school have?
7. 8th grade was high school.
8th grade was high school. And you say at that time 11th grade was the highest grade you would go to?
Yes?
When did they change that to 12? Do you have any idea?
No. After my time's the only thing I can say.
I never knew that it was 11th grade.
I'll bet you we had an equal academic burden to the, maybe harder than the 12th graders. We may have covered equal ground in less time. Maybe more ground because we were highly disciplined. We were not, we had to be in the high school building during all school hours. We weren't allowed to go walk downtown or anything like that. And I think that 12th graders got that freedom privilege. We never got.
In high school, did you have like separate classes for history and math and all this, or was this all?
We'd go to individual rooms for individual subjects, and there might be several sections for one subject for a class. Like history, the freshman class was too big for everybody to be taught history at the same time, so there might be 10 sections of history taught in a classroom. These are numbers picked out of the air. I don't know what it was. But it was way too many. And smaller classes enable better teaching and better learning. I can say, years later I wound up in graduate school, the only student in 2 courses taught by engineering physics PhDs. There was a teacher and me. That's intense teaching and learning. We didn't quite get that, but we got a lot better than this mass quantity teaching. Big schools are not the solution. You lose the touch. Small schools are the solution. One teacher, one pupil is the ultimate.
Were you ever involved in sports in the high school?
The answer is no.
What kind of sports was major back during the time that you were in high school? And what was the big thing then?
I want to qualify my answer to you there. That in August of 1929, I was found to have a bad case of typhoid fever. A lot of people thought I was a goner. I came out with an erratic heartbeat. And Dr. R.L. Lewis pulled a miracle treatment of me to get me through it. And found the irregular heartbeat and said, no organized athletics. Sandlot, okay, there's no high pressure, high speed with sandlot sports. Farming is a perfect venture for somebody with your condition.
The doctor told you that?
Yes, because farming is not done against a high speed, high pressure environment. You got to go at it 16 hours so you pace yourself. You know, and he was right. I just didn't like what he said, and that kept me out of organized sports. Now he did let me try at tennis, you know, because it's not a high pressure, high pace sport. Along the way, one of the great athletes in Paris treated me nicely and started picking me up at dawn, coming by our place, and we'd go to Wise Field, which is a football stadium with the track. And he and I would run track for an hour and then go home, take a shower, and have breakfast and go to school. And that was about the most strenuous that I was involved in. I mean, if you run half a mile, that's extensive exercise. Now, we played sandlot football for years on First Ward School ground, where we were living in that sector at that time. I was always invited to those sandlot football games. At Christmas 1930, I got a football for Christmas, and I was the only one that had a football, so they invited me to each game.
Now, what is sandlot football? Is there a difference between that and football?
Yeah, 4 people can play sandlot football.
How many?
4, 5, 6, 8, 10. It's disorganized football. two teams. They line up in some fashion or other, and they scheme a play and try to score with it. And, you know, it's elementary, like satellite baseball. You don't have to have 18 players. 4 on each team is a nice deal.
Well, what was, when you were going to high school, Paris High School, what was the major sport that the high school was involved in? Baseball, football, basketball, or were they in all of them?
Football was number 1. Basketball was number 2. I guess next would come 6th or 7th. Those two didn't have much competition. I don't remember baseball being played.
Really?
Yes, really. Baseball, there were baseballers in Paris. So I don't remember it as a sport, and I think it had a lot to do with the climate. And at that time, we hadn't gotten to lighted fields for night play. Nobody'd go to the games. Nobody's stupid enough to go sit in the hot sun, which was a seasonal sport when the weather was hot. Nobody'd go. And there wasn't much play. On the other hand, today, we went to Culberson Park, which is on East Washington Street, just off, I think it's 12th or 13th southeast, where there used to be a tennis court right at the edge of the park. And one who frequented with the rest of us was named Eddie Robinson. I think it's Robinson. Maybe it was Robertson, I'm not sure. After all this time, who became first baseman for the New York Yankees World Series after World Series. So there was baseball there. There were other star players in prior time, but I don't know where they got into the sport. Eddie Robinson was one of the finest people you ever knew, a natural athlete. I prize the memory of his acquaintance. And he was one of about 10 of us who met there. All kinds of strange-eyed, the rest of strange-eyed characters. Well, not so. Kyle Gillespie was a natural athlete who went on to be quarterback for TCU. There was Roger Evans, Happy Stell, David Dunnigan, Talbert Murray, others, and I who frequented that tennis court. There was another tennis court situated where Fitzhugh Avenue dead ends on to Pine Bluff Street. There's a house there now, and we played there a good deal. There's another one just west of First Christian Church. Actually, there were 3 there, I think, at the time, and we used to play there.
So tennis was
that was my preference, really. I never got any good at it until years later. Yeah, you ready for another one?
Yeah.
In the Army, and I finished my minimal hitch in Korea while the war was on, which qualified me to rotate to Japan and have the family join me. And I got there and had to wait for him to get there, so I wound up in Senior VIP billet of the Far East Command, United Nations Command. I was brand new lieutenant colonel. The rest of them were lieutenant generals and everything. I was rare, a rarity. My roommate was a colonel at the Air Force Medical Corps. Roommate. We shared an apartment. He took his first choice and I got what was left. He took the living room and made it into his bedroom, etc. And I got the bedroom for my room. We shared a kitchen and bath. His first venture was to insist I come play squash with him, which we did in a court in the basement of the Sana Hotel. And he beat me like a drum because he'd been playing a good while, and he was very unhappy because the British, the Canadians, and the Australians had been beating him like a drum. And they at a point got angry and swung my racket mightily at the ball. I missed the ball and hit my knee. And went to the doctor the next day, and he said I probably damaged the cartilage. You know. We just have to wait days and so forth to find out what it might be. They didn't have any repair then. I kept playing at squash with anybody. If there's nobody there, you can play by yourself. You don't have to have an opponent. And there came a time when our family came and we moved into the family housing area, and there were tennis courts, and back to tennis, and I found out that the pace of play of squash was so much greater than tennis that playing tennis became a matter of waiting around for the tennis ball to reach you, you know. It was absolutely marvelous. I was devastating on the tennis court, and had a grand time. And then I got my own squash rackets after we got back to that. Still have squash balls. Let's go play, you know. Then in 1964, realizing that we lived in states of stress and I need to get rid of it. This is because I was stationed in the Pentagon at the time, and it was a stressful place. I started jogging, following the old scout pace, build up, a mile a day. A mile every day, 365 days a year. And that went on for 24 years. And I played golf about 3 times a week besides that, walking, pulling my car. About a year ago, that squash injury on my knee bit me on the golf course, and I've had surgery, arthroscopic surgery, and I've had to give up golf. I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness.
You can't play with a gimpy left knee. You can play with a gimpy right knee. The suggested resolution of this is to install an artificial knee joint in the knee, or switch to left-handed golf. You can do it. At age 77.
Now I have to ask you a stupid question. What is squash?
You know handball?
Handball, okay, is that the same?
It's done on a handball court.
Okay.
With only the slightest modification. It's played with a racket. It looks like a badminton racket. You know what that looks like? Mm-hmm. But it has the weight and strength of a tennis racket. It's played with a ball, same size as a handball. You know that. It's dead rubber. And you hold it this high and drop it, it might bounce that high off concrete. So you have to hit it with all your might. It flies like a bullet, hits the wall, and dies. It's the fastest game that I can imagine. Because you got to get to it as soon as it hits something.
I see.
Dead rubber.
Huh?
Dead rubber.
Absolutely dead.
I've never heard that term.
It doesn't bounce.
Let's go back to Paris in your high school days. Other than going to school, what was the things to do around town in Paris during your high school days?
It's kind of hard to answer. Yeah.
I mean, were there movie theaters here?
Oh, sure.
What
You
was
had to
form of
find the money.
entertainment?
We're talking about the bottom of the Depression. Money to go to the theater was a problem, a genuine problem. And you didn't think too much of movie theaters. I'm talking about the family couldn't ante up the money for me to go regularly to Saturday morning movies, like you had as a little kid, you know. I did not date in high school. Dating was very limited according to the moral customs of the time. There were some who did. Some of them who did it a lot. But there were family rules like mine that never, not ever, give a girl any cause for disappointment or false hope. Never associate with a girl until you have completed your schooling. And such as that, you know. And this kind of puts the old cramps into natural impulses, and that's where we lived. Couldn't buy a girl a Coke. Couldn't take her anywhere without bothered, you know. So it was mostly male beings and female beings. I guess the girls would have been willing for the most ordinary things that came along. They didn't come along. Not to withstand the fact, I was initiated early into the High Y Club, and that was a club of juniors and seniors, males, and we had a dance once a month, picking up a combo, going to Lamar Country Club, Gordon Country Club, that sort of thing. I never dated.
And what was the name of this club?
Lamar.
No, the
High Y. It was associated with YMCA, with high school branch. And we did good things. We also partied. We didn't party. We had dances, and they ended at midnight. And the girls accepted the invitations. The parents permitted them to go because we were a pretty decent, pretty respectable bunch. I don't remember ever hearing of an incident or accident involving a group, even though we'd have 20 couples dancing once a month, you know, with a 3 or 4 piece combo playing from 8 to midnight with a 10-minute break occasionally.
So when you had these these couples that had dates to these parties, how did you get together? I mean, did everybody have a car, or did you go on horseback or walk, or what? How did you pick your date up?
Let us back up right there.
Okay.
The Model A came on the market in 1929, Model A Ford. I was 12 years old. I was already driving our Model T. Within 3 months after we bought our Model A in 1929, I was proficient in driving it. I guess I was driving a Model T at age 11. I started driving a Model A at age 12 and continued driving it. We later got a Ford V8, and I left home with that in the family. Automobiles on the farm were essential equipment. Everybody had to be able to drive because farm was a working endeavor. Everybody was involved. There's no slopping around. So I could have our family car anytime I wanted it, starting with my freshman time in high school, that it wasn't committed to family need, which was most of the time it was available to. We didn't have any money. Gasoline was a nickel a gallon, and we could find that kind of money.
Did you have to have a driver's license back then? What were the restrictions on? I mean, did you just? I mean, could you see? Was it normal to see 10-year-olds driving Model Ts down the road all the time, or what?
That was uncommon because Model T driver's front seat was not adjustable.
Or Model A's, or automobiles.
Same
of
with
any
Model
kind.
A. Having legs long enough to reach pedals was the big criteria. The rest of it, most bodies could handle, but you had to be able to put your foot on the pedal and push the pedal before brake, clutch or brake or reverse gear on the Model T or accelerate. We were all going along well and happy and so forth. The state passed a driver's license law, and a number of us went to the courthouse together. I remember it clearly. Charles McClure and his wife Dorothy, you probably know them or know of them, and I were together. There may have been others in our group. Went to the courthouse and filled out a form which was our driver's license. It was free. This was 1936.
No test, no other. Just
No.
fill out a form.
That's all. We were skilled drivers, all of us. One of the main reasons was that many of us lived in the country where the dirt roads got slick as could be when it rained, and the problem was keeping the car on the road. And you get skilled where driving slaloms and autocrosses and stuff like that. That's a big deal now. That's a piece of cake compared to keeping a car on the road when the road's like ice. And, you know, we had to learn to do it. We also all lived under the rule that if you wreck the car, we walk, because we can't replace it. And so everybody drove carefully.
Did you have tractors for the farm?
No,
Was
there
it all
was mules. Now, very few farms had tractors. There was one at Ambia. Carl Neely had a John Deere tractor. There were no others. I knew mules well. Dad bought his first tractor after I'd finished college and left Texas. At one time, I guess he had 4 or 5, maybe 6. He was working big acreages, some of which he owned and some of which he rented. But with that equipment, one man could cover a lot more territory than one man could cover with 2 mules.
In the times that you used the mules on the farm, what was the major crops that you grew out there?
Cotton was the money crop. Corn was a crop to feed the mules and the cow and the pigs. Now, we raised various forms of cane called high gear. I can't recall the names, but there's a bunch of different kinds that develop a seed pod at the top. Maize was the name of one. And we raised that to a lesser degree. It was kind of a food break, give the mules and the cows a little variety. We got cotton seed from Jennings Cotton, which was a principal diet for the cows, and it really produced rich milk. Or they produced rich milk eating cotton seed.
So cotton was what you basically grew to bring income to the family then?
That's right.
How many acres would you think at the height of all this were in cotton?
You talking about our family?
Yeah, in your personal family.
In my time, and my father expanded far beyond what I know, I'd say 130 acres. And they would say that in a good year we'd get 65 bales of cotton off of it.
Do you have any idea, do you remember how much a bale of cotton was back then?
It weighed 500 pounds.
And the price of it?
In the Depression, a nickel a pound.
A nickel a pound?
Yeah.
Would y'all have to haul all these bales yourself, or did you hire someone to haul them to?
What we would do.
The cotton was brought to the gin, I forgot. You brought the cotton to the gin.
Yeah. What we would do is get the cotton picked. Now this is junior grade crash venture. When it becomes in condition for picking, you want to get it picked, because precipitation can damage it and lessen its value. So what we would usually do is be in Paris in the northeast section, which was a main colored section, and there would be colored cotton pickers out looking for work. And we had a 4-wheel trailer which hooked on behind our Model A sedan. We'd get 15, 20 of them, take them out. They'd pick cotton all day. Each time they had a sack about full, they'd come to the wagon. We'd weigh it with a scale, be emptied in the wagon. When the wagon was full, that'd be about 1,450 to 1,500 pounds. That's a bale of cotton. By the time you get the seed out, which is about 1,000 pounds. And go off to the gin. I made many, many, many runs to the gin. In the peak of the season, Mom would be at the wagon keeping books. And those type cotton pickers wanted to be paid daily. So she was custodian of the money, because she had to settle with them at the close of the day. She was always just a little uneasy, you know. I don't know how much money was involved, but we had to see it. She had money to pay them. And we also had to keep water there and try to have a $5 lard can or something like that with ice in the water dipper, something like that. Get drinking water. Where'd the ice come from? Well,
Next question, where did the ice come from?
there's a neat little story which caused me to bring it up. An ice truck would come around every other day in the warm to hot weather to each house, and it had a card in the window, 4 corners, and each one have 25, 50, 75, 100 for pounds that you wanted, whatever was hanging down. And the iceman would chip it off and walk it in your house and put it in your ice box. Okay? So we had a real nice ice box. Had 3 doors, one of which ice went into. Below that was a door where the drip pan went, and the other was a full height door with shelves where the food went. And when it was very solid, and when you closed the doors, they stayed closed. You'll notice this fingernail is crooked. It has been crooked for 74 years for getting caught to the icebox. The funny story was, I think it was about 1932, the iceman came, was new, and then he was a young man, and he was very handsome and very personable, and he had a fine Ford truck to deliver it. And lo and behold, 3 of the younger ladies in the community became pregnant. Everybody, the adults, were talking about the iceman.
What was the Iceman's name?
I don't remember. You don't need it. But I got one first cousin out of that, and I could take you to another one. Lives in Paris right now, I think. But I'm pointing to Paris, 10 miles in that direction. I forget what that. And the third one has moved to Lubbock. I can name it. It was just a nice, gossipy thing. The big deal the whole time was good humor, top quality, good manners. Everybody working toward the ultimate. And fun, and the root element of fun was the battle of the sexes. Men and women as groups, locking horns, and we had a great time. Back to the Ambia School. I told you there were 2 rooms which had a movable partition to make one room with a stage at one end, dressing room on each side. We used to have theater there every year, live theater, and plays would be presented. And this was people undertaking it, practicing, costuming, homemade costume, and putting on plays. And we would have other things going on, like box suppers, or pie suppers, or picnics, all sorts of money raisers and what have you.
Now this theater you're talking about, these were people of the community,
Yeah,
right? These
yeah,
were
our neighbors.
outsiders coming in.
Our neighbors.
And what would you'd be putting on Shakespeare, things like that, or what?
We did not get that high. We didn't have the circumstance. I guess it'd be Broadway type plays. The popular ones of the times. We weren't behind. We, current what's going on in the theater world. We get the play scripts and line up the cast and pass out the parts. Start studying and start practicing. But at least one play each year. I don't remember ever there being 2 plays. One, yes. And I think they tried toward the lighter side, just more entertaining. Nothing serious, no tragedy, no Shakespeare. We couldn't handle it. It would not have been befitting the people in that community to try Shakespeare.
We still got a few more minutes.
Hey, my wife asked me, and I've got sort of an obligation. Go ahead.
You need to go?
I'm
have
trying to
about-
be behind the 8 ball.
We
I
have about
am
20
on.
minutes left on tape. No, we have 20 minutes left on tape. That's what I meant.
I'm behind the 8 ball already. Carry on.
What are your best memories of Paris, Texas?
Whoa. It has to be the people. And I think the people have qualities here which are rather rare and rather ideal. I think it comes from the circumstance of quasi-isolation. Leads to the creation of a natural society and natural behavior and generally I think natural happiness.
You mean natural happiness, in other words, being content with what they have here
And it's being good.
and it's being good.
Now, I may be able to produce for you a page out of a book from our library in Huntsville, which says the northeast section of Texas is the best place in the world to raise a family. And I believe it. And the reason is we're isolated. If we could get rid of TV cable, we'd be in great shape. It is so disruptive.
Are there any community events or just any event at all that come back to mind that are memorable for you?
Yes.
Stand out.
Yes. Spring of 1930. There was practice at the time that the city of Paris was turned over to the Boy Scouts of America, and scouts were appointed to each of the city positions. And I think John Mahaffey was appointed mayor, and somebody else was appointed chief of police, and I got appointed to be fire chief. 12 years old. So I went to the fire station as indicated by the instructions at 8 o'clock and checked in. I think it was Chief Moss, fire chief then. And he told me, got around the place, do whatever you want to do. If you hear the bell, make a beeline. If I'm upstairs, come down the brass pole. Go practice it a few times and get used to it. And get in the passenger seat of the fire chief's car, which was a red Studebaker coupe, flashing red light sirens and everything. And I think it was about 10:30 in the morning. There's the old bell, and I make a beeline. And the time I got to the fire chief's car, well, he was there with the word. And we had a house fire out about Heron Street at 12th or 13th Southeast. We pulled out by the Baptist Church over to Clarksville Street, knew the corner, headed east down Clarksville Street. Fire chief's car, the flashing red light, the siren going, and a big pumper coming along. They didn't have any mufflers on them, and they didn't have any exhaust manifolds, so the cylinder was firing to the atmosphere. They were noisy. And behind the pumper came a hook and ladder, and there we go dashing down Clarksville Street and up there. The house was really on fire, and we were there some time. They put it out, and I watched them. That afternoon there was a grass fire down toward your place of business. I don't know the official name for that, Mary.
The Lamar County Jail?
Yeah,
Sheriff's Office?
sheriff's office. It was down in that direction. It was just a grass fire in a residential area, and the chief took that by himself with me along. He took a hand extinguisher, put it down. We went back. Now that's a memorable experience in my lifetime. What else?
Were there any others?
Probably.
What about, you mentioned something about a hanging or burning at the stake in your time?
Well, that's when I was at Ambia. I was just a little kid. I don't even know if I was in school. My Uncle Emery, who was born July the 4th, 1900. How's that for a holiday? A birthday. Came into town and got caught in the confused traffic system with this burning and encountered heavy stench from the burning flesh, and it sickened him, and he got out of town.
When was this?
I
This
would
is
say
when you were
it's
a child.
between 1920 and 1925. That, I don't look on that as anything memorable in my life at all. I think it's deplorable.
Right.
But a lot of things we think are deplorable were natural in their own time. Like slavery was the law of the land when the Civil War started. The official law of the land. I don't approve of slavery, never did. But I didn't make the laws.
Who is your favorite or most important person here in Lamar County in your lifetime? The most famous of your memories?
Well, I've got to pick on one man. It could be Reverend Wright at First Baptist Church. It could be Dr. Lewis, who saved my life. That's important. Pardon me.
That's right.
But I'm going to have to say Mr. James M. Yates.
Why do you? What did he do?
Well, he was old enough to be my father's father. He was a man of landed wealth. He was very wealthy. He was very common in his ordinary behavior. He was very kind to people with all his money. I think he was the one which caused me to be put through college. I don't know whether he put up any money on it or not, but I think that it's very possible he imposed on Dad to see that I got through. Now, he and Dad were like father and son. He had a dear wife, and he thought the world of him. So I guess that has to be an important factor. I still have to back up to Dr. Lewis. He saved my life. Oh, I mean, go ahead. That irregular heartbeat, he had put me on restricted activity, and I stayed on restricted activity. And entering the Army at Walter Reed Army Hospital, I had to take a thorough medical examination in November 1941 and finished it, and had to face a board of senior medical officers. Back when a captain was next to God, there were 2 majors and a lieutenant colonel on the board, and they were going over my being, and the sinus arrhythmia heart condition came up, and they brought it up, I guess, and I told them where it had come from as best we knew and what the rule had been since then. No vigorous exercise. And they said the diagnosis is exactly right. The prescription is exactly wrong. You can go forth and do anything you want to. You stand a greater threat that something happened to you because of that heart condition of being hanged for rape at age 95. This is what they told me. It stayed with me through the years, and then I got into atrial flutter in 1988, so I had 2 heart conditions going on. I had to ignore them. There was nothing I could do but ignore them if I paid attention to them. The palliates all over. So I ignored them, and in an annual physical, I guess this past May, my doctor said, your heart ailments have gone away.
Fantastic.
And I couldn't quite believe him, but I have my own blood pressure deal, which is electronic, and it beeps each pulse beat. And so I listen in, it's such a nice rhythm instead of all sorts of messed up noises.
How neat.
Can you imagine? Heart problems going away? I can't. I like it, but I can't.
That's great. Well, is there anything else you would like to say for posterity or your friends or?
I have people here whom I look upon as the dearest of friends, and I don't guess there's any call to name them, but most of them know who they are. I don't have any that I think are enemies. So, that I know of, they're there, I'm sure, but I can't think of anything else. One thing we hadn't done was I did go to Paris Junior College for 2 years after Paris High School. I should mention that. That's back when it was the old concrete campus, now the American Legion building. 1934, 1936 time frame.
After junior college, where did you go to college?
Texas A&M for 4 years. I was trying to become an MD, and that was the course I'd been on for years. And I got to A&M, and the handwriting on the wall appeared that I had to have $5,000 cash, and I didn't have 5 to get through med school. And then 2 years of internship, and then start out trying to earn money while switching to engineering could lead to money in the near future, and so I made the switch. I could go on for a moment longer. I switched to civil engineering, and then got a little more learned. In my second year there, I was into mechanical engineering, graduated in mechanical engineering, and came back and went to see Dr. Lewis last time I ever saw him. I said, I went to A&M to become a doctor and came out of mechanical engineering. He said, that's strange. I went to A&M to become a mechanical engineer and came out a doctor. I loved the guy before that. After that, I thought it was just wonderful. Because of changing major fields, I lost just about all my junior college credits, so I wound up spending 4 years doing it. Like I had physics at Paris Junior College, 3-semester course. At A&M, it's a 5-semester course. They wouldn't even talk about it, except to forget. And this went on and on, subject after subject. Pre-med didn't fit engineering, so I wound up going to college in Texas for 6 years. The Army sent me to Cornell later. That's a different story. Has nothing to do with Lamar County.
You joined the Army after you graduated from A&M?
No, in March of my senior year, there was a scheduled examination for civil service given on campus en masse. And there were 400 of us. We were at our auditorium and we all took the test, and I took the one for junior professional assistant mechanical engineer. And there were a bunch of us that did, and a bunch of the faculty members. And I beat out every student and about half of the faculty. And this got to Washington, where the average pay for my graduating class out of A&M was $85 a month. I was offered $2,000 a year in Washington, and I took it. $166 a month, almost double. Left here on short notice. And have come back for short stays. And this one's about to come to an end.
Well, we appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
and I'll certainly. Do you have a VCR? Would you
Yeah.
like me to mail you a copy of this?
Hey, I'd love that. Oh, I don't know. I'm thinking. I don't want to let my wife see it. She'd have a good time.
Your children will appreciate it.
Well, I suppose we are about out of invitation. I want to thank you again for the interview.
Ron, thank you.
Thank you.
Mary,